Greetings, it's Jerry here. Today I have this so-called disposable vaping device. I didn't buy it. Some miscreant put it into my garden waste bin. It was a lucky thing that I checked it before I brought it back into the house and just found this sitting at the bottom. It pissed me off, obviously, because this does not belong in the garden waste bin. It's got a battery in it. I'm not even sure how it works, but I assume that it's powerful enough to vaporize things, and it could possibly have set fire to something. If not at my home, then at the recycling center where they create compost out of the garden waste. But since I've got it, I'm not going to waste the opportunity, because I certainly have wanted to pull one of these things apart for ages, but I wasn't going to buy one to do that. That's what we're doing today. We're just going to pull this sucker apart, see what's inside. Now, I did a quick search on Google to find out the current state of disposable vapes in Australia. And it turns out that as of 2024, January, disposable vapes are banned. It is not legal to have them or to sell them. The only way that you should be able to purchase one of these is from a pharmacy. With a prescription from your doctor. Also, any disposable vapes that are sold have to comply to a certain standard. I mean, this is obviously, something that the government has had to deal with. They didn't want vapes at all. I think they've come to the conclusion that they can't stop them, so they might as well try and regulate them. I'll show you a website that shows you the details about this particular vaping device. It claims that it is, yes, disposable, that it is good for 9,000 puffs. I have no idea how long 9,000 puffs would last the average person who's addicted to vaping with nicotine. It looks cool. It's goldy colored. It has a little indicator here which apparently will show you how many puffs are left on the device, and the device, I guess, stops working when it reaches the maximum amount of puffs. Alright, so let's open this sucker up. Okay, so I have cleaned this thing up with some germ wipes, and I'm going to wear gloves with this. Not particularly wanting to touch the insides of this. In order to get this apart, we need to get a spudger in under the bottom part of this. So there we go. So what have we got inside? So looking inside that, there's a whole bunch of particulates, dust, sort of on the inside, and I wonder if that's, there's a result of, whatever's being vaporized is actually large enough to form a layer of dust. I mean, that can't be good. It actually felt a bit gritty when I pulled it out. Yeah. So what do we got in here? It looks like we have a little electronic board here, which is going to the display, and we've got a big ass battery in there, and there's a power wire there. Now, I think to get it out, if you push on the battery to try and push the whole thing out the top, something here I can use to push. Oh, okay, it's a matter of force. Okay, so this is just a case with a clear plastic window in there for the lead. So not much to see there. Wow, okay. I mean, this is what I thought. I mean, this is a disposable device, right? Doesn't look very disposable to me. It looks like a pretty well-made piece of electronic kit. Yeah. Which is annoying me more than anything else, really, that this is, you know, the impact on the environment, having something like this just being thrown away. But like I said, they are banned in Australia for plenty of reasons. One of them would be, doesn't deserve to be disposable. So the way this works apparently is that when you remove this container here, this reservoir actually contains a sponge which has the fluid in it that people vape, and as you suck, it somehow gets vaporized. I don't know whether it uses heat or whether it uses an atomizer, you know, something that shakes to cause it. I would imagine that it atomizes, because it would be way dangerous if it was actually heating it up. Yeah, so there must be some sort of device. I don't know what this is here, whether that's a speaker or that is a sensor. So to activate it, people suck on this, and the act of sucking must cause something to happen to turn on the circuit to allow the vaporizing to occur. I'm actually smelling really sweet, sickly sweet smell coming out of this. I'm not real happy about this now that I'm pulling it apart, thinking that it's been in someone's mouth, but I'm only ever going to do this once, and my curiosity is getting the better of me. You know, consider this something you don't have to do. Okay, so there we go. So this must be the vaporizing module, and this is the reservoir. And so the liquid gets poured into here, sucked up by the sponge, and then when you activate the vaporizer, it'll be surrounded by the liquid and people suck it out into their lungs. Now, here's the problem that I see that scares the hell out of me, is this is a sponge. This is, you know, this is, and you know, if I just do that, it's actually already crumbling, and that's what I'm afraid that gritty stuff that was in there is. There's like the sponge, because, you know, bits of this sponge are going to go into your lungs. And, you know, I know for a fact, because I use a CPAP machine, which is a thing that helps you breathe at night for sleep apnea. And one of the largest brands in the world of CPAP machine had to recall their CPAPs because they had used sponges inside the unit and discovered that the sponges were actually toxic. And so over time, the sponges would break down, and particulates, parts of the sponge, would be sucked directly into the patient's lungs, which was very, very bad. God knows what's in this. You know, is this a sponge that's medically approved? I don't see how. Especially not if it's, you know, bought directly from China. Very scary. So apparently people do, you know, pull this apart, put the juice in there, and get this unit to work again by resetting the counter on this if they reach their 9,000. Yeah, that seems like a very bad idea. But, you know, what are you going to do? Okay, so that's what that is. That's how it works, essentially. So this device here, I guess, must be the thing that vaporizes it, that atomizes it. This does seem to be, you know, liquid in here, so maybe this thing ran out of battery before it ran out of juice. So I'm going to have to go and look up exactly how this thing works. But it looks to be, you know, a tube, and the tube actually has more sponge in it, which I guess soaks the liquid up directly into this bottom of this tube, and it then vaporizes the nicotine stuff into a gas state that people can inhale. Ugh, seems like a terrible thing. Really does. So so whether that uses heat or it uses some sort of ultrasonic thing, I'll have to look up. Okay, so let's pull this apart a little bit more. So we've got some foam here, which I think is just padding for the inside. So we have a battery. So it's supposed to have a 2350 milliamp battery in it, and I can't see the figures, but it looks to be 1850. It's definitely 1-something 50 milliamps. So I have no idea what this battery is, whether it's a rechargeable LiPo. Guess we can check to see whether it's got any power left in it. So we've got 3.59 volts. So it's got some charge left in it. Not a lot. So I can see that the wires are coming to this vaporizing tube, which we'll get to in a minute. And they're also going into the back of this board, which also appears to be connected to this. So this device here, I think, might be the sensor that senses pressure and turns it on when somebody sucks on it. So we can take a look at that in a minute, but we need to get the board out, and it looks like there's a single screw down in there. Okay, so we've got a tiny little screw there. All right. Let's pull this apart a bit further. So it's got a rubber grommet there that I guess is to stop the liquid from getting through, or to help stop that. See if I can't get that through there. Okay, so that's out. And there appears to be something else, another filter in there. Okay, and there's a little bit of hot glue to stop this from coming through. So that must have been soldered through. Okay, let me see if I can't cut this through. I want to keep it all connected for the moment. So I'll see if I can't find some pliers to get that nibbled away. Okay, so I got those out, but I did a little bit of damage to that. That's okay. So it looks as though there's another piece of foam in there. I guess to suck up more. I'm just curious to see what else is in there. There must be some sort of heating element. Oh, that's really stiff. Like whatever's in there. Is that foam that's just turned into really hard stuff, or is it a different? No, it's some sort of fibrous thing. It's not foam. It's more like, maybe more like a traditional. No, I've broken that now. doesn't really matter. Okay, give me a moment. Okay, so I've just cut it open, and what do we have inside? We just have wire. So this looks to be some of that perhaps nichrome wire, or just wire that heats up when current is passed through it. That's all it is. And that's sitting in the middle of this wad of something, just dense. God help us if that's asbestos or something like that, but that's sort of what it looks like. I think I might just get rid of that. I mean, I'm sure it's not, but it's come straight from a factory in China. God knows. I mean, this is all unregulated stuff apparently, so this is not good. Not good at all. All right. So we've got a battery. It's going to a circuit board. The circuit board has a LED on it, and it appears to have a sensor, which I think is what turns it on when it is sucked. There must be some sort of flap in there that when it gets negative pressure, it just physically turns it on. There are some pads over here, on here, and then label P1 is the designated marking, and it's got KPAVG. So I don't know what that's for. Let me see if I can see what the chip is. This chip here is completely unmarked, doesn't have anything on it. The other chip has 3415E. I'm guessing that's a transistor for turning things on and off. Yeah, and that's about all she wrote. So my guess is the way it works is you suck on this. That is just basically a switch that turns on the rest of the chip that provides current to your little vaping device in there, and away you go. And I guess after a certain amount of time it stops heating, and it must be a microcontroller over here which is keeping track of how many vapes, how many puffs that you've had, and yeah, it stops when, I don't know, the battery runs out, or when you reach 9,000 vapes. So it says FL. Don't know if you can see the FL flow. I don't know, some sort of error. But you can see as I apply pressure to this device here, that's what's causing it to turn on. So it's got an error. But so this device here definitely is the thing that activates it. So we might as well take a quick look at that. I'll desolder it. I'm going to get rid of this battery before sparks start flying. I have no more need of that. I don't really want to activate it. So I'll just put that aside for a moment. And I'll take this off. This whole thing stinks of sickly sweet juice, I guess, whatever that stuff is called. Yeah, so there we go. So there's, I guess, our pressure sensing switch. And so it seems to have some sort of thing on the surface there, maybe a porous surface, maybe that lets air through. All right, it looks like almost like a sticker. Yeah, so I think that lets air in, does it? You see that's sort of a cloth. No, where did it go? That's sort of a cloth covering. And there are little holes, perforations in like a metal can underneath that. So that must allow air to penetrate and get inside this sensor. The sensor is completely, you see the little holes there? Yeah, so this sensor is completely canned. Not sure if I can get it apart. I'm not going to use this because, as I said, you know, my temptation is to keep it and reuse it for a project or something like that, but because it's been inside this horrible device and everything seems to stink. So it appears to have a, you know, metal top there, which lets air in. And then what have we got underneath? We seem to have what? Well, that's a pity that I was so rough with it, because it just appears to have a chip inside. And that chip must be doing all of the work, I guess. It's tiny little PCB inside and a chip attached to it. Yeah, that's a pity. But that's okay. I mean, we know what it does and how it works. So what are the markings on that? It's CSC98 something something. I was thinking that maybe I would reuse the battery in something, but everything stinks to high heaven. Ugh. I want to get all of this stuff off my bench in the bin. Okay, so I really want to get this piece of crap in the bin and off my desk. It stinks to high heaven of a sickly sweet smell. Yeah, I mean, if pulling this apart doesn't convince you that this is a bad idea to use these things, I don't know what will. Okay, well, I think my initial reaction to finding this in the bottom of my garden waste bin was justified. This device not only doesn't belong there, but it's dangerous. It has a heating element in it. It's got a battery. It's got some dodgy circuitry and some sort of pressure device, which, you know, maybe if it sticks on could cause the whole thing to overheat and potentially burst into flames. Certainly the battery could just be crushed inside the truck that is picking up the garden waste, and all of a sudden you've got a fire in garden waste and all of the problems that would go along with that. We might as well pull apart this battery just to see what's inside. So it looks like it's a LiPo battery. LiPo batteries are quite violent. If they accidentally get punctured and things like that, they are not a stable battery chemistry at all compared to other things. But they're very convenient because they pack a lot of current inside a small unit. A lot of times they have a board on here that prevents them from being overcharged, because that can cause them to burst into flames if you provide them with too much current. But obviously, because this is built down to a disposable price, yeah, there's no charging circuitry at all. Yeah, I really don't want to have anything to do with this battery, but I am going to need to discharge it before I get rid of it. So it's 3.6 volts. So I wonder whether I can use my LiPo battery discharging device that I use for my drones, which is just a couple of 12 volt car lights, indicator lights, soldered together. So the LiPo batteries that I discharge are much larger. They're over 14 volts. And this is what I use to discharge ones that I want to throw out, because the lights themselves will draw as much current as they can. And but of course it does cause these things to essentially puff up and do all the wrong things. So I don't want to do it while I'm here. I'm assuming that it'll be okay, even though this won't have enough power to light these up, that they will still draw as much current as they can out of it. So I might take this outside, be safer, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so this is my LiPo battery discharger, and normally I have a terracotta pot that I put this in, because this battery can potentially burst into flames if you try and discharge it really rapidly, which is what these light bulbs are doing. It is drawing as much current as the battery will give it, and they'll continue to do that until there's nothing left in the battery. So this should be alright. I'm going to keep an eye on it, but we'll come back and see this in a bit. Okay, as you can see, I found my fireproof container. It's been about 24 minutes and I've come back and the lights are completely dim now. And let's take a look at this battery. It's not hot, but you can see how it's all puffed up. It's not particularly happy being discharged that quickly. So let's see how much voltage is actually left in it. So there is 0.5 of a volt left in it. I'll actually put it on for a little bit longer, come back in an hour and see if it's any lower than that. Okay, so I've left it for another hour and we got it to 0.3. Looks like it's slowly recovering as I've disconnected it. Just curious to see what would happen if I short it directly. Now that's such a low voltage. And we'll come back and see whether or not it gets any lower. Alright, so it's been another hour. I've left it completely shorted out, positive to negative. And it's down to 1.78 and recovering a bit, quite slowly. So after a couple of hours, it looks like it's recovered back to 0.96. I guess that's as low as we're going to get it. Alright, I guess we'll leave the video there. Hope you enjoyed that. If you like what I'm doing, think about subscribing to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you on the next video. Ciao!